Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week at the Better Events Podcast. This is Mary Davidson, one of your co hosts. And in today's episode, we are talking all about hiring event contractors. We're talking about building the right team. And this is part one of two because this is going to be a lengthy discussion. So today is all about hiring. Logan and I are going to share a lot of wonderful tips and tricks with you. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hi, friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And in this week's episode, before we jump into talking all about hiring event contractors, we have our conversation starter. And this week's conversation starter comes to you courtesy of Kilbreath Events, one of our partners from the 2025 Better Events Conference. And Mary, the question is, what song is your theme song right now?
Great question. So I have a Spotify playlist called Mary's Theme Songs. I play it when I need some motivation, usually during event week, to be honest. And so I just went through and I could probably pick any of these songs, but the one that I love is Miracles Happen. I think it's by Mira, but it's from, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's from The Princess Diaries. Yes. If you know it, you know what I'm saying. Yes. Just,
oh my God.
I feel that one in my soul. Like I sing it a lot just because it's funny. It brings me back to like the 2000s and I'm here for it.
I love that. I don't have a Logan's theme song, but I do have what I used to go to KTV, which is their like karaoke in China. And I would joke, it was individual like rooms for you and just your friends. And I would joke when I was in there, I would forget what songs I was recently singing, like interested in. So I started a playlist to be like, oh, I might want to sing this at KTV. And that is my current playlist. And I did recently, Mary, rediscover Cheetah Girls. So their song Strut and Cinderella are on that playlist as just fun ones. But yeah, I think my theme song, it changes. That's the hard part. I feel like I get into different like little earworms. Right now, mine is Olivia Dean's Man I Need. That is just, it's got such a good swing and beat to it. And like you, Mary, I definitely had a pretty intense event this month that I earlier had to put it on just to be like, I'm gonna strut down the street to this of like, we're just faking it till we make it because we're so tired, but we're not because we got an event to do. And yeah, it's interesting the power of music at turning your mood around.
I love it. That's a great answer and a great question. So thank you so much to Kilbreath Events for being our 2025 Better Events Conference partner. Kilbreath Events has a team of auctioneers, MCs, audiovisual experts, and event planners ready to help you with your next event. So make sure to visit their link in the show notes to learn more. And thank you again for asking the fun question. Now we're going to get into our topic for today. Event contractors, as we know, they're a great tool in the industry. And you can really use them to supplement your event team on site. And you can do event contracting to even build your event resume and diversify your experience. So lots of value there. We talked a bit about building our teams back in episode 115, but we're diving more into contracting specifically in this 2-episode series. So you're going to get 2 episodes from us about this. But first, this week, we're talking about how to even hire event contractors. So to kick us off, Logan, when we say event contractor, what roles are we actually talking about?
That's a great question, Mary. We love broad to start. I mean, I think event contractor, there's so many roles that you can be a contractor for. The way I would define being a contractor is that you do not work full time for the person who is hiring you to be there on site. So whether that's you're a contractor that the event host. So let's say it's an event for Disney. Mary loves, and I both love Disney. Let's say Disney's hosting it. Disney hires me to come in and just show call. I am a contractor for Disney. Or maybe Disney hires EP Events to bring in all the event management things. And then Mary hires me. I am a contractor for Mary at EP Events. And so I think there's so many different roles that you can play as an event contractor. Most often I see it either as being like you are a subject matter expert. So you are something that provides a certain, like that's how Mary and I work together. Like I really am in the production world. Mary will hire me as a contractor because of my production experience, but I've also like personally used it where I just need extra bodies. Like I can only be one person. I need more hands. So I'm hiring contractors to add to my team because there's just too many things happening at once. And I figure I can train them sometimes on the specialty piece if they need it. But that's how I would define it. Mary, you have more experience than I do with hiring contractors. Anything you want to add to that answer?
I think I would just double down on it's for a certain period of time, typically, whether it's per project or just a certain amount of time. And typically, it also has its own scope of work as well. So, a specific role for that project. So, I would just add and double down on that. But I think you summarized it well, Logan.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mary. And I guess with that also is usually as a contractor, you're not getting any benefits. So you're not getting, and benefits in the like legal sense of the term, like you're not getting health insurance, you're not getting retirement contributions and anything like that. But it does then, yes, give you that flexibility of just being short term. You can contract for multiple people. And yeah, that's just kind of how we would define it as we move forward with this discussion. But Mary, I'm really interested in your answer to this next question. How do you decide what roles should be contracted out versus handling yourself or within your internal team?
Oh, this is the golden question. This is something that's really hard to actually figure out sometimes. I think the clearest needs are when the team it currently in place is already at capacity, and so you need more people. For us, this normally is on-site event roles, and that's just because we only have so many people we can bring on site. So if we have additional roles we need to cover, that's a really easy thing that we need to bring in a contractor for. So that's one situation. And then I would say the other thing when our team can't necessarily have capacity to handle something is when it's specialized, like Logan was saying. And so there are some roles that we bring in, like let's say a stage manager. It's still kind of on site, but sometimes they have some prep time that they need to prepare, get familiar with the script and stuff like that. And a lot of people can do that role, but not everybody can do that role. And so it is more of a specialized role that, again, we're looking for a specific skill set versus just general help to come on site. And we know that sometimes we need to outsource that. And so I would say those are the two circumstances. There are definitely more, but that's how I could simplify it. Logan, what about you? How do you decide what should be contracted out versus handling yourself?
I mean, I'm handling a lot myself as just one person, and that's the way I've built my business. And I think I've actually like enjoyed just being me. But there are sometimes for certain events that they want me, but what they want me to do requires more than just me, and that is where I find myself needing. To that point I made earlier, like extra hands. Like I physically cannot be stage managing and pushing buttons on this laptop and over here doing that. So it's like, okay, I need 1, 2, 3. I'm counting in my head how many people I need. And that is usually where I'm bringing in contractors is to fill in and slot into some of those roles. And I haven't been able, like, I don't feel comfortable subcontracting out work. Like if someone hires me and it's me, they're like, we think we get Logan. I will not just give it to somebody else and have them go like in my place. It is 99% of the time it's going to be me. I had one instance this year where from the jump, from the proposal process, they told me the event date and I was like, I'm booked on this other event. I can't go, but I will be with you every step of the way prepping it, and I will hire the on-site team to do it, and I will hand off to this other person to be your main point of contact in the weeks leading up to it. But that's like the exception to me. And so I don't think I necessarily have to make that decision as much as you do, Mary, because you're kind of scaling differently than I do. But I definitely had a period of time in like 2022, 23, where I feel like I was getting asked to do a lot of events that they needed me to bring a team. And then that kind of fell off a bit. And now I only probably do it 3, 4 times a year out of my 25, 30 events I do. 3, 4 times a year, I get asked to bring people like on as a contractor. The more frequently that I see this, and I'm not hiring them, but I have inquiries right now that I can't be a part of, and they're asking me to recommend somebody. So I'm not going to be contracting that other event contractor, but I am going to be recommending them. So I'm putting my reputation out there to recommend them, and then they are going to get contracted by whoever was looking for the work. So that's like a different angle where I'm looking more for like referring good people than necessarily hiring them myself.
Absolutely. I think that makes perfect sense. And just to kind of summarize, I think contractors are a wonderful way to fill gaps, truly. If you are thinking, can I work with more contractors? Just start thinking about where your gaps are. So, Logan, you kind of started hinting on this a little bit, but how often are you actually hiring these event contractors for your events? You said a few times a year?
Yeah, like 3 or 4 I'm hiring, but I almost every project I'm on, I'm working with fellow contractors. Like to our point earlier of like how many opportunities there are for contractors. There are so many. Like more often than not, I get branded as an agency Like, again, let's go back to the, example of like a fake company. We'll say agency ABC. That's the name of the company. I get hired by agency ABC to work for company. The company, when they see me, they're like, Logan of agency ABC. And that's fine. I don't promote Logan Strategy Group. I am a part of this agency when I'm on site. But it is funny around like coffee breaks, me and my fellow agency ABC people are all like, oh, do you work full time for agency ABC, or are you a contractor? Just out of curiosity. And that's, where you start to discover it's like, oh, a lot of these companies have full-time people, but then they have so many events happening. They're trying to scale, they're trying to grow. To your point, Mary, the easiest way to do that is to bring in temporary contractors. And the best way to not have overhead then is to only have them as contractors, because then you use them for events and you don't have to pay them when you don't have events. So I am almost always having event contractors on site beside me working at events, but personally, I'm only hiring them probably directly like 3 to 4 times a year. I'm interested in your answer, Mary, though, because I feel like you have been scaling as a company. So I'm curious, how do you almost every event involve contractors?
Yeah, it is almost every event now. And that's also because of just some preferences that we've started to build in our systems, which is we really like to have at least 2 people on site. And it's very common that there's like more like 3 roles depending on what's going on. And so, yeah, and the thing is about that is, for example, in 2025, we had a weekend where we had 3 back-to-back events. It was like 3 days in a row, and all 3 of us internal staff were on site for all 3 of those days. And after that, we said, we're not doing that again. It's different when it's like one event and you're on site for multiple days, but these were 3 different events. It's a different kind of lift. And just like emotionally, mentally, physically, we were like, we're not going to do this again. So that would have been a great circumstance in which we should have brought in some contractors to help so that we all didn't have to be on site for all 3 days. I am always trying to max out people's capacity because I'm paying them regardless. And so I am like, well, if we have time, we're going to do the thing. But there's a balance, I think, that we're trying to figure out a little bit as well. And so, yeah, I think most every single event, and I would say it's not common that it's for the pre-event planning process. It really is more on site. I started to do more pre-event planning things, hiring contractors, and I'd say the need is just less apparent there. It's kind of a more of a rare circumstance when we have that type of need.
And it also helps you too if you're a business that has seasonal work. And that's like if you have a busy season and a slow season, to Mary's point, like if you have full-time people, you're paying them regardless, versus if they're a contractor, it's like they're usually tied to that specific scope of work, that specific event, or that specific season. I know I've played around with the idea. I haven't done this yet, but just if you're someone who's in a similar situation to me, a year and a half ago, I had a pretty busy season. And I tried using a VA. It didn't really feel like a virtual assistant. It didn't feel like it really was what I needed. And I realized I probably needed to have brought in a contractor of someone at my level, Mary's level, of like already understanding the event industry and paying them some set retainer fee for like those 3 months to essentially body double for me, where they could have helped me clean out emails or something that like I knew they already had the acumen, the event know-how, but they could have helped save me time and some really late nights. And I haven't had to do that yet, but that's something I always kept in my back pocket, that if I ever found myself facing a season like that, that I should probably bring on a contractor just to do some like behind the scenes pre-pro work with me.
I think that's a really great call out because the temporary contractor situation is something I have really considered. That's very enticing for all the seasonal work that, like you said, it's very common in events. So yeah, I think it's something to think about. All right, Logan, where do you actually find these contractors though? Where do you find great people, and what stands out early on when you are selecting them or working with them?
Yes, again, our chicken and the egg, folks. You need the experience to get the gig, but you need the gig to get the experience. And I mean, a lot of times I find myself going back to folks that I've worked with before. Saying that though, there always has to have been like a first time of me working with someone to get it, to have these people. Because also the people I love and care about and want to work with all the time, they're getting booked and busy. So I'm constantly looking for new good people to bring in and, kind of backfill if they're ever not available. But a lot of it's word of mouth. So hearing from Mary that Mary worked with this great contractor, I'm in need of someone, Mary recommends them, I'm more likely to, accept that. I'm not posting online usually. I rarely am doing call outs. I think I had to do that once or twice last year just for some larger scale events I was doing. I asked the LinkedIn network for recommendations and they came through with some people. But it really is word of mouth and what helps people stand out. I mean, as in the early phrase of just like reaching out, are you available? And like, let's hop on a call and start to try to kind of feel out what their personality is. Will it jive with what I was looking for in the team is one part. And then also like, are they quick to reply to things? Are they professional in their communication? I always joke to people who volunteer at things when I ask them to volunteer. It's like, well, how do you make a good impression as a volunteer when you're trying to get paid work out of it? And I'm like, do what was expected of you. Did you get asked to show up at 9 and you showed up at 9 or at 8:50? Or did you show up at 9:15? Did I ask you to do these like 3 tasks as a volunteer and you did all of them? Great. I'm usually going to probably recommend that person and want to work with them again because they did what I needed them to do. Bonus points if you go above and beyond, that makes you really stand out. But yeah, usually it's either you're taking a chance on a person if you've never worked with them, or it's somebody else has recommended them. And that gives you the confidence to say, cool, I can bring them on site, put them in this role and they'll do a good job. So Mary, how about you? Since you mentioned you're hiring contractors so often, how do you find these great contractors?
Oh, let me just be honest with you. This has been challenging, and it's not because there's not good people. Like, if you're listening to this, you're like, "I've worked with Mary. Does she say I'm challenging?" No, that's not what I'm saying. And it's just hard to find people who are good and consistently available because the good people, they get booked out. And so, I found myself just kind of continually having to network and figure out who is out there by asking the community, by asking colleagues and friends, who are you working with, and just constantly meeting people. So this is interesting to me because I'm also like, yes, I believe that there are a lot of contractors out there, but like Logan, you were kind of saying, ones that that stand out, that I can trust and put them in any role no matter what. Those are like really the ones that I'm looking for. And so these are usually event professionals who have a vast amount of experience because they're flexible and I can slot them anywhere. And so finally, we've gotten to a place where we've worked with a handful consistently. And I really like the consistency of keeping the same people because we know what we're getting into and they also know what they're getting into. They understand our expectations. And so I think once you just find that person, who jives with you and jives with your process and the team and all the clients, that's the other thing is I think they have to have really, personalities that kind of get along with everyone because they're just showing up on these event days and all events are different. Try to do what you can to have them want to come back, treat them well, try to pay them well because it's really hard to find people who consistently can fulfill that type of need. So that's what I would say is you just look around, you talk to people, you work with them, and if it's a good fit, you try to keep working with them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you make, Mary, of just, yeah, some of it is faith in in the person just working out. But I do think, yeah, personality plays a big part in like what people you can put in what roles. A lot of times what I'm doing on the tech and production side is about like what personalities go well, who's got that calm under pressure, demeanor that I know can be in front of a client while there's a production proverbial fire happening and they're not going to show that. And a lot of times though, I go, you can't tell. So that's, I guess, now to our next question, Mary. It's like you can't really stress test someone until they're on site and see how they do in a stressful situation. But like, what signals tell you someone's going to be a strong partner before being on site?
So I have to be totally honest, and this is like a tip for anyone who's contracting. I'm like so happy if you're busy, but if it takes you a long time to respond to me, then I'm going to pick somebody else for the opportunity. And it's because I know that there are more people who are more eager for it. And so I guess that the reason I'm saying that is if they are portraying that they don't have the time for me, then I don't think that they're going to show that they have like the time to do well at the event, if that makes sense. So it's really not a great way to start off. And so I think that's probably my biggest thing is just their communication. And I sorry, I'm like really doubling down on this because I find that contractors are the worst at this because they are busy and it's usually just themselves. So you got to figure out your system so that you can respond to people quickly. And then also before even being on site, I love the people who just seem flexible, but they're also straightforward. They're like, I'm really good at this, but also I can do this. And I'm like, great. So what you're telling me is that you have a specific skill, but you're willing to do anything. You're going to be a good team player. And so that's kind of the sort of things that I'm listening for. Logan, what about you? What signals tell you that someone's going to be a strong partner before even being on site?
Yeah. I feel like you mentioned red flags too. So I feel like it's strengths and red flags. I think, yeah, I think the speed of replying to things, I've started to realize even in the like asking a contractor, asking someone, hey, are you available for this event? Is also then being like, what else do you have going on around this event? Like in the lead up to it, are you all of a sudden going to be on site for another massive show 2 weeks prior? And now you can't make any of my prep calls. And that's something I don't necessarily see some larger agencies that I do work for don't do that. And I find out instead of having one team call, it's now more my time because now I have to do individual one-on-one calls with everyone because nobody's availability aligns, which is not a big deal if I have that time scoped in. But depending to your point, Mary, if you're trying to like be like, let's have one team kickoff call and then we're all on site and that one person's not available, that can be tough. And that also helps start that expectation like of understanding of like, oh, okay, if you're on site, then like there's no I have no time with you until you're on site. Okay, maybe what I pay you, my scope is just going to be day of, truly day of, not going to do any pre-work with you. Or if they're pretty flexible, then it's like, oh, I actually have more work I could offload on you. So that's a big one. And then, yeah, I feel like you don't get much out of people. I try to have phone calls whenever I can, especially if it's like like I said, I work with contractors that I didn't necessarily get to pick. So I feel like nothing builds rapport better than face to face is the best, but obviously a lot of times we're like in different cities. So it's like having a video call where I can just kind of get to know your body language, see how you respond to my questions, like that kind of stuff. I can start to feel of like, okay, here's how I think we'll work the best together. So I love a video call, even if it's just for a quick, like 15, 20-minute get to know you. That's definitely always made me feel better. But yeah, I guess on the red flag side of things, if you're having a hard time getting answers from people in the lead up to coming on site, like, yeah, what's your expectation when they're there? And then I'm a big fan of just like positive attitude. I don't like when you're on site, I don't think you have to be the, rainbows and sunshine all the time. We're definitely allowed to go through tough things, but so much of my job is absorbing the stress from client and absorbing the stress from other people and needing to at least be like solutions oriented. And so I'm looking for contractors that have that ability to be like, okay, I do want to be called out when we have a challenge or a problem. We really need to solve it. But I'm also going to know who's the person I should tell that information to. And it's often not the client. It's often going to be needing to have like an internal conversation. And I do joke that's why I have a job, is because a lot of the people who work in AV and tech don't have that kind of filter and are just going to say everything is broken. And now you've made the stress 1,000 times worse, when in reality it was like, the Wi-Fi wasn't working. Here's the 3 steps we need to do to fix it. So, but now you've told the client everything is broken and their brain is spiraling. So, yeah, I think, and that's the hard part. I don't know, Mary, how to judge people's event like chill before they're on site. So that's why getting recommendations from others is so valuable, to be like, Mary has witnessed this person in action. Mary's recommending them. She'll understand. She knows my style. She knows they have that event chill.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great point because that's something that I also don't have the full answer for. It's something that we're working through right now. I've just been talking to some of the contractors that we do hire more often, and I am like, so how do I know that someone is a good contractor? Like what I've decided is that I need to vet people more. And I don't quite know how to do that. So if you are listening to this and have any advice, please, I'm more than willing to hear what you have to say. Because like Logan said, I really appreciate the recommendations from others, and usually those are quite sound. But there are some instances where I just feel like I need to ask a few more questions to make sure that I'm putting them in the right role, or is, setting expectations with them clearly. So I don't know what those questions are. I feel lame if I'm like, so we're going to do an interview, but I almost am like, that's where I'm at. I think I might have to start doing more of an interview process.
You do. And I mean, I just think sometimes though we're getting asked to do things so quickly. And so it's like you need somebody now for an event that's, a month or two. Like we just don't have the gift of time sometimes for that. But yes, listeners, if any of you have a system, a template, some way that you're doing that, we'd be all ears, I think, for understanding that. As we get here towards the end, again, we said we're going to do part 2 next week is going to be dropping. This is from the perspective of hiring. We're going to be from the perspective of getting hired next week. But Mary, second to last question, how do you define scope so contractors can truly succeed in their role?
Okay, I love this part. And Logan, maybe you have an opinion on our process, but what I love to do is actually write out a scope of work. I put the start date, the event date, their roles, like how many hours, and send it to them as part of like the contract process. And I've had contractors comment saying that they really appreciate that because then they know exactly what the expectations are, and that a lot of people don't do that for them, which I was actually surprised to hear. And so I love putting the scope of work together. It takes me, after a while you start doing them and have templates, and it takes me maybe 5 minutes to put it together. It's easy peasy, super recommend it. Logan, what about you? How do you define scope?
Yes, something written, exactly as you said. And I think also defining the jargon. I have been burned as a contractor, and we'll talk about this more in next week's episode, but I've been burned where I got hired by as a role as producer, and there's things I associate with producer, and that was different than what they did. And I don't think I had, if I look back, I'm sure I had an email, maybe a sentence or two, but I should have had better bullets of like, wait, what is it exactly that I'm doing? What are you doing as the client or the event company hiring me as a contractor? Like, role and responsibilities just keeps everybody on the same page. And I was definitely guilty when I first started where, yeah, I would do more of that handshake, that text message, even, yeah, Mary and I, when we hire each other, we do, our contractor agreements just to make sure that it's totally clear and we're aligned on, what each person's doing.
All right, Logan, last question for today. What do you wish more contractors understood about the hiring side of the table?
This one's a good one. I want to know your answer to this, Mary, because I feel like for me, my philosophy I think I'm a very like contractor first mindset because I'm frequently the contractor. So when I'm hiring others, I try my best to like negotiate the best rates that I can for them, treat them really well with housing and food and like a team dinner and just some other, like try to go above and beyond on the little things. And with that, I'm not usually marking up people's rates. I'm like getting a management fee, in a different kind of avenue. And so to me, I am usually when I'm giving people budgets, it's like, well, that's what it is. And unfortunately, like I'm sorry that's the way it is. It's not like the negotiation back and forth. But if I'm a contractor, I'd rather just know Logan has this much for the day rate and it's take it or leave it. And I don't always get that as a contractor going to other people. They let me set my prices for some of my larger clients that have bigger budgets. So that's kind of what I would hope contractors working for me would understand. But I also like, if you're listening to this and you're like, that's not how I do it, Logan, I ask them and then I just mark it up. There's multiple ways to do it. I know, Mary, you do, I think, a combo of the two.
Totally. Yeah, I love to know their rates. At the end of the day, our margins are different on almost every event, and I wish it wasn't that way. So sometimes the rate is just better than the others. So, yes, I totally agree with what you said. The one other thing that I haven't run into as an issue, but I'm really glad that contractors will do this, is they put a soft hold on their calendar for some of our events because I'm pitching an event to get a contract. And as part of that is like, I need to make sure I can actually staff it. So I'm going to come to Logan and be like, hey, you just happen to be free on this date? And then just, pencil it in, soft hold. If you get anything else, just like, let me know and I'll give you an answer. So I'm not asking you to miss out on work. I'm just asking you to keep me in mind so that I know that if I need you, you may be available. And that process saves me so much peace of mind. So just if you're a contractor and you don't do that, maybe start considering just managing your calendar with some soft holds.
It's a great one. And we'll get more into it next week, I feel like, because there's pros and cons to soft holds when you're on the contractor side.
So true. So true. All right. Well, this has been a fun episode. So that brings us to the end of today's. And Logan, you have our bonus tip.
Yes, my bonus tip is kind of in line. We talked about one of the ways to make a good impression as a contractor is to be responsive. And for me, with some of my event work, I am all heads down on this event and it's really hard to manage my inbox. And something I've been trying to remind myself is that a response of thank you, received, I'm going to get back to you next week, or thank you, received, I'm on site an event, I'm going to get this to you next Tuesday is way better than a no response to an email. And I had this with a client that was like excited to work with me. I'm excited to work with them, but I also want to like have my attention to detail and not mess up their contract or their invoice because I'm sleep deprived for my event. And I've had zero pushback whenever I send these. And I feel like it's checking the box of being communicative, but also letting them know, I'm responding to you next week. And that is way better than me ghosting them for a week and them thinking, oh, maybe she doesn't want to work with us because she hasn't replied. So try that with your emails. Again, a thank you received, I will review, or I need more time, I'm going to get you back this date, has been working for me so far.
Thank you, Logan. Great bonus tip. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook at Better Events Pod. You can email us at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can also connect with Logan and I directly on LinkedIn. We love to hear from you. And if you want more Better Events content, you can join our private community on Substack. So thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with you again next Wednesday.